Welcome to Picking Bones. I'm Eric Jones. Today we're going to talk about the Nation of Islam and Scientology. What do you think these two organizations have in common? It's a shocking amount of things. This is going to be a fun video. I'm not going to be too heavy on this one. Let's just look at this weird cult. So the Nation of Islam was founded by... Actually, I'll start with this. It was founded by this guy named Wallace D. Fard. And apparently Fard immigrated to the United States sometime before 1930. And in that year, he established the Detroit Temple of Islam, as well as the University of Islam and the Fruit of Islam, which was like the corpse of male guards. And Fard preached that blacks must prepare for a race war with Christianity and the whites. He argued that Christianity was the religion of the slaveholders. And he was very anti-white from the very beginning. And in 1934, he disappears. Their organization believes that this guy was an incarnation of Allah, that he was a messianic figure. But yeah, he just disappears in 1934. Really weird. So let's jump over to the Nation of Islam's brief history of Islam. They say that the black people originally came from this place, this tribe of Shabazz from the lost nation of Asia. And, Fard's messianic mission was to teach black people that through a knowledge of God that they could reach self-independence and superior culture and overcome the whites. So then Fard he starts preaching his message. This is according to their version of the story, though, for the record. He starts preaching this message, and then he meets Elijah Poole, who becomes he will take over the organization once Fard just disappears, and he renames himself Elijah Muhammad. And so Fard starts teaching Elijah Muhammad this hidden knowledge that their people were the original founders of the planet, and that things had become corrupted, basically, by the whites. So it says, upon his departure, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad identified the master as being the answer. It basically just says, Muhammad starts, saying that he is the Messiah. He compares him to Christ. He compares him to all these different ideas that there's going to be a messianic figure. So it says here, as the baby Nation of Islam came to birth in America, the world rulers were shaken in their foundation to learn of this miraculous achievement. And as you know, the purple is the retard alert. That's when we use purple text highlighting. I don't think that the world rulers were shaken in their foundations. Maybe that's just me. It also says that they are never taught to carry arms, never to make war or be the aggressor, for this is against the nature of the righteous. If you know anything about the Nation of Islam, one of the things that they're especially well known for is being a prominent prison gang in various prisons. And of course, they also murdered Malcolm X. So this is absolute BS. And then we have this. This is another article on their site talking about FBI COINTELPRO. Now, there was a lot of FBI COINTELPRO going on during the civil rights era. There were, plans to go after and discredit, all of these prominent black figures that came up, including Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. So the FBI was trying to discredit these people, and so it's really hard to say what happened here, because this gets into what the FBI's research into Fard, who just disappeared, and so they came out with some different things. There was this notion that Fard was actually a white man. And so the Nation of Islam offers money to, if that can actually be proven. And there's another interesting piece that came out that they say the FBI fabricated a piece of biographical propaganda, according to which Fard Muhammad was a Turkish-born Nazi agent for Hitler during World War II. This biography indicated that Fard and Elijah Muhammad had concocted the idea of the Nation of Islam while they were both in prison together in Milan, Michigan in 1943. I thought that's pretty interesting. But the fact is, we don't really know what happened to Fard. But was he some sort of intelligence asset for the Nazis or for the FBI? I don't know. It's pretty weird. But anyway, that guy disappears. And this guy, renames himself the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then he's got himself a cult. So he, he preaches against the white man. And, we're not going to go through all of their pages. He runs the cult for a while. Then his son eventually takes over, W.D. Muhammad. And this originally was an article from Newsweek, but they don't have it up anymore. But it says the passing, this was when he died, the passing of W.D. Muhammad is a loss for his community and for the world of Islam, because what happened with the son, this is the son of Elijah Muhammad, is he went with more traditional Islam, and he led most of the Nation of Islam into Sunni Islam. So he kind of rejected the cultic teachings. He threw off the high title that Elijah Muhammad had given himself, and he led his people to a more traditional Islamic perspective. And of course, now running the current iteration of the Nation of Islam is Louis Farrakhan. He rejected W.D. Muhammad's push to more orthodox Islamic faith, and he pushes as many people as he can back into the more of the original cultic style teachings of the Nation of Islam. Evidently, Farrakhan was actually recruited by Malcolm X, or not directly, but it was Malcolm X was speaking to the crowd, and that's when Louis Farrakhan got involved. He decided to cast down his musical pursuits because Malcolm X said, they couldn't keep pursuing that if they wanted to pursue the teachings of the temple. And so Farrakhan dedicates his life to the Nations of Islam. Again, this is the Nation of Islam version of what happened. Farrakhan is well known for being a horrible scumbag, racist piece of human garbage. That's his fame. But I touched on the name Malcolm X. This is another key figure with connections to the Nation of Islam. Malcolm X also a key figure in the civil rights movement. He was more violent, or militaristic in his like anti-white rhetoric for a very long time. He didn't really line up with the way Martin Luther King wanted to pursue, better rights and, pursuing a better world for black people. These men didn't see eye to eye on how to do that for a very long time. But eventually, Malcolm X leaves the Nation of Islam. He becomes disillusioned with Elijah Muhammad, and he converts to Sunni Islam. And so W.D. Muhammad, I think, was kind of following along in Malcolm X's footsteps, seeing that his father was a horrible cult leader, and so they went to more traditional Islam. Now, this is an article on Malcolm X. His family accused Louis Farrakhan of direct involvement in the assassination, and his daughter actually was arrested for trying to hire a hitman to take out Farrakhan, to avenge her father. Says here, W.D. Muhammad, who started the chain of events that led to Malcolm X's expulsion from the nation when he told him that his father, Elijah Muhammad, had impregnated 6 of his secretaries. So really it wasn't just him following Malcolm X's footsteps. I mean, these guys together kind of saw the corruption in the organization, and I don't know how intertwined their destinies were after all of that, but together they did see the corruption. And so Farrakhan, though, later on in a 1993 speech, he says, "Did you teach Malcolm? Did you clean up Malcolm? Was Malcolm your traitor or ours?" He asked rhetorically. And if we dealt with him like the nation deals like a traitor, what the hell business is that of yours? So he basically admits to the murder. He's got some other quotes where he basically admits to at least like kind of inspiring this. And it was 3 Nation of Islam members that were arrested for the murder of Malcolm X. Louis Farrakhan is an absolute monster, and there's no doubt in my mind that he straight up ordered the hit on Malcolm X. It seems pretty obvious that that's what happened. He doesn't directly ever admit to ordering a hit, but he's like, yeah, my words could have inspired it. And so here's a video clip. I apologize for the quality, but this is a 1964 video clip of Malcolm X where he exposed Elijah Muhammad.
Frankly, it has been a well-known fact, though only in the form of rumor, that there has been a great deal of apprehension at my being out of the black Muslim movement on the part of the black Muslims themselves. And I had stated in a newspaper article about an effort to take my life back in January, and at that time the Muslims denied it. In fact, they tried to make it appear to my brother that I was insane. But on a program in Chicago called Hotline, moderated by Wesley South, John Ali, the national secretary, admitted, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, one of these days last week, that they absolutely were going to kill me.
Why are they threatening your life?
Well, primarily because they're afraid that I will tell the real reason that I'm out of the black Muslim movement, which I never told. I kept to myself. But the real reason is that Elijah Muhammad, the head of the movement, is the father of 8 children by 6 different teenage girls. 6 different teenage girls who were his private personal secretary. 4 of them had 1 child apiece by him. 2 of them had 2 children, and one of those 2 is pregnant right now in Los Angeles, where they're his 3rd child. And the one who first made me aware of this was Wallace Muhammad, Mr. Muhammad's son. and it was their fear that if I remained in the black Muslim movement and this came into the knowledge of his followers, that they would leave him and follow me. So a plan immediately was set in motion to take me down, put me out, and the statement that I allegedly made, or not that I allegedly made, I did make it, the statement that I made about Kennedy was used as a pretext to take me down. But in reality, it was because I had come to New York and told Joseph, the captain in New York, and the secretary and the minister in Boston about these children that Mr. Muhammad had. And it was that right there was the real reason for my being out of the movement.
Did you get out of? What will you take to protect yourself from this threat?
I take no steps. I have a rifle. If anybody comes to my house without a good reason, I intend to try and use it, and that's all.
A few days later, the same thing for him.
And after Malcolm X, exposed Elijah Muhammad, and before he was murdered, he converted to Sunni Islam. He started trying to work with white people instead of totally being antagonistic against them. He started to change his outlook on how we should be working to improve race relations. Is basically a big debate in the civil rights era was, do we want separate but equal, or do we want separate and equal? I totally said that wrong. It's like, do you want them do you want segregation, or do you want to destroy segregation? And some people argued that it would be better to have equality but stay separated, basically. And Malcolm X being one of them, and he changed his position. So here's an interesting thing that exists. There's this huge interview it's a pretty long interview with Alex Jones and Louis Farrakhan meeting. I didn't turn my brain to mush, so I didn't watch this, but they seem pretty. Alex is pretty buddy with the guy. It's just so if you want something insane to watch, that's a thing that exists. But what is the connection to Scientology? Clearly this is a horrible cult, but what's the Scientology connection? Well, here we have a New Republic article. Talks about how Mike Reinders, former Scientology spokesman, went to one of the Scientology churches in Washington and said half the damn people there were Nation of Islam. He told me it's the weirdest thing. So what's going on here? So the story of how Farrakhan basically embraces Scientology, and the way this happens is supposedly is this, one of their members named Tony Muhammad got involved with Scientology. He says it made him feel great. It was helping him a lot. Farrakhan meets with him, and he's amazed by the transformation, and he says, whatever you're on, I want some of it. And so he introduces the Nation of Islam to Scientology. 2010, he brings a ton of his people to a Dianetics seminar where they're taught how to do auditing, which if you don't know what Scientology auditing is, it's basically they get you to tell them all of the details of your life, and that's partially used for blackmail material, which is important in a cult. They often use blackmail. It says here it's kind of a hybrid between hypnosis and confession, and so Farrakhan asks all of his Nation of Islam people that are there to become auditors. So they're really tied together at this point. Initially, he didn't talk about it. He just said that they had new technology that would help his people. Farrakhan is pretty famous for calling white people a race of devils. The Nation of Islam has historically been anti-Christianity and anti-white. And the nation teaches that the apocalypse will involve a UFO or mother plane that will eradicate all Caucasians. Doesn't sound very fair to me. I don't want to be eradicated for being white. But this is what the Nation of Islam teaches must happen. But yeah, so they have this weird alliance with this like rich white cult. Yeah, so this is a thing that's happening in our world. And it says, however, there are some striking theological overlaps that might explain how they created this alliance. And it says there's, of course, an attachment to science fiction, where the Scientologists believe in the alien dictator Xenu. The nation holds that the white race was created by a mad scientist named Yakub. That's not very important. More significantly, though, at the core of both religions, there is a never-ending pursuit to better the self. In the case of Scientology, the idea is to go clear. This is like a goal in Scientology, to clear yourself of thetans. And in the nation, they have similar, trying to erase the past damage to your psyche that the whites have caused. And so, it talks here about the difference between how Scientology tends to target white rich people and get them to pay tons of money to increase through the ranks. The Nation of Islam historically targets poor black people. And so in this alliance, though, that they have, evidently the Church of Scientology is allowing the Nation of Islam members who are kind of joining with them to go through the different courses and auditing education at a lower cost. It says here at the end of the article that in another video recently posted by Anonymous in 2010, Farrakhan addresses a small dinner crowd in a Scientology celebration center. And he walks out and says, "Nobody can lead our nation unless they become clear." So he uses the science, like he says, you have to become Scientology clear. He hoped that the alliance between the nation and Scientology would be a long and beautiful relationship. It's crazy. And here we have from the nation's website themselves, the unfolding story of the Nation of Islam and Dianetics is bold. Currently, the Nation of Islam has 1,055 certified auditors. Among those, 526 of them have received their gold seal permanent certification. Wow, I bet they're really proud of that. Really proud of that. So something we skipped over, though, is Yakub. That's Yakub. He's a giant-headed, evil scientist who ruled the world for like 6,000 years. So yeah, this is a thing. Elijah Muhammad, the guy who ran the cult for a long time after the founder, he wrote this book. Yakub, it's like play on Jacob, and he's supposed to be the one who created this modern world. And you know what? We're not going to go through this book. I haven't read it. I have no intention to read this garbage, but it is interesting. It talks in here like the curse of the white race. So this evil scientist creates the white race for some reason. I don't even know. One of the chapters is why was Yaqub allowed to rule for 6,000 years? Yeah, this is a legit thing, and yeah, like that article said at the end, the apocalypse. Some mothership's gonna come and eradicate the whites, and the black people will be restored to their original glory. So that is the connection between the Nation of Islam and Scientology. Crazy stuff. I hope you enjoyed this video and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.